Man plans and God laughs. Nobody can relate more to this statement right now than the Indian government. It had planned an impressive wheat export target of 10 million tons, but just days after it announced this target, it had to eat back its words and issue a ban. Despite being the world's second largest producer, India is facing a shortage of wheat. How did this happen? Welcome back to Revolution Read On, a daily podcast where we break down one story from the world of business and finance. Click on the subscribe button to never miss an update from us. Here's your story for today. It all started with the Russia Ukraine war. Yes, it is the war's fault again. Both Russia and Ukraine were major suppliers of wheat to the world. But because of the war, their exports dropped, causing a 30% supply gap in the market. That's a huge number when it comes to a staple and versatile food item like wheat. The whole world was panicking now about their roti, pizza, and pasta supplies, but not us. As the second largest food producer, we were rolling in wheat. In February, we were set to produce 111.32 million tons of wheat, a sixth straight record setting crop. So, we decided to make the most of this opportunity and began exporting large amounts of wheat. Wait, why weren't we doing that already? That's complicated. India is a developing economy with a lot of poor farmers. So, to ensure that these farmers get enough money for their crops and continue in this profession, the government had introduced minimum support price, the minimum guaranteed amount that a farmer can get for a particular crop. Not just that, we also give our farmers other subsidies and stockpile large amounts of grain for public welfare schemes like the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. All of these practices are considered quote unquote trade distorting by the World Trade Organization, which is why it has limited the scope of our exports. Why trade distorting? Because giving subsidies and stockpiling grain puts us in a better position than other countries that can't do so, creating a possible monopoly. Plus, our grain quality also wasn't up to international standards. So, our exports were only limited to around 1% of the global supply. But with the world facing shortages, we could increase these by a little bit without much opposition from the WTO. We struck export deals with countries like Egypt that were heavily dependent on Russian and Ukrainian wheat. That's when climate change came to bite us in the back. The excruciating heat waves that have been bothering all Indians, except a few lucky Bangalore peeps, have also impacted wheat production. Though wheat requires a warmer climate during harvesting, due to the early onset of summers and average temperature rising to 33.1 degrees Celsius, the highest in the past 122 years, the yield of wheat fell drastically. This escalated the gap, due to which wheat prices were up by almost 24.5% in March 2022 as compared to the previous year. From 111.32 million tons in Feb, our expected wheat forecast went down to 105 million tons in May. Now, we know that this doesn't seem like a huge difference, but as India's domestic requirement of wheat is around 99 million tons, this meant we could no longer achieve our 10 million ton export target. So, couldn't we just lower the target? Well, yes, but the problem was that farmers no longer wanted to supply to the government or local traders because they were getting roughly 27,000 rupees per ton to export wheat. More premium if the distance between the port and mandi is less, as compared to the MSP of 20,150 rupees per ton. Even after cutting various costs like bagging and transportation, farmers were able to realize a gain of around 4,500 rupees per ton. Thus, farmers turned to international markets and many of them started to hoard wheat in anticipation of a further rise in prices. This flared up food inflation in India, with prices of atta, a staple in every Indian household, rising to a 12-year high. Not just that, the government's own procurement of wheat, which it uses for welfare schemes like Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, also fell 50% from last year, a 15-year low. So it had no choice but to ban exports. Otherwise, regular citizens would soon not be able to buy or even get wheat. The government would also not have enough stock for its welfare schemes. But many countries have criticized this move and called it selfish, as it could potentially cause food scarcity in several countries. If not that, it will definitely make this staple used almost every day in regular households too expensive for most to afford. And this could also cause a domino effect that endangers the entire global food supply. How? Top suppliers like Indonesia in palm oil are now banning exports due to domestic shortages. If more and more countries adopt this strategy, developing countries could be in dire straits. The only solution? Fighting climate change and raising crop yields so we have enough for both domestic supplies and exports. Only time will tell if we can achieve this goal before it's too late. Thanks for listening in. Make sure to follow this podcast if you aren't already. We'll be back tomorrow.